At the 2023 Pokemon TCG World Championships, the Pokemon Company announced that Ace Spec Cards will be returning to the game in 2024. And I wanted to use this as an opportunity to look back at the old Ace Spec cards and ask the question, which of the legacy Ace Spec cards should come back? I'm Jeff from InThirdPerson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And for context, the Ace Spec cards, these were a mechanic where there were item or tool cards that you could only have one of in your deck. So the effect here is very strong. These cards were introduced in the black and white era, 2012, and there were 13 different Ace Spec cards that were released during this time. Now, I was not playing the Pokemon trading card game during that time, but I have been playing it a ton in recent years. So I can at least speak to some of these legacy cards and how they could be modernized for the current meta, or if they would even fit in the current game. And just to preface this, I would like to see new Ace Spec cards as well. I don't want to just see Pokemon retread all of these cards, but I imagine some of these are going to come back. So for the time being, let's go and look through all of the original Ace Spec cards, and I'll make a judgment on which ones I would like to see come back. And if you go through this and you disagree with some, or there's some other ones you would like to see come back, let me know in the comments of this video. And we're going to go in order of release here. So the first one is going to be Computer Search. You discard 2 cards from your hand. If you can't discard 2 cards, you can't play this card. And you search your deck for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And I think the answer is obvious here, even if you haven't played the Pokemon TCG like back in the day and you look at what this card does now. Yeah, I absolutely want this card to come back. And when I started playing in 2021 and I would hear about Expanded, everyone would say you gotta have Computer Search in your deck. And looking at the effect of Computer Search, like, yeah, this is absolutely insane. Discard 2 cards, grab any card from the deck, and I guess, yes, it's balanced by the fact that you only get 1 Ace Spec in your deck, but this seems insanely strong. It was insanely strong back then. It seems like it would be insanely strong now, and it makes me wonder, like, do you even, maybe you have to nerf this card a bit? I don't know. And to be fair, because of the legacy of Computer Search being the iconic Ace Spec card, I don't think you even bring back the Ace Spec mechanic if Computer Search is not coming back as is. And every deck would be able to play this. It seems like an incredibly strong card. Yes, I would like to see it back, and I would imagine this card coming back is a lock. Now, let's go to the next one. Crystal Edge. This is a card that was specific to White Kyurem EX, which gave it a 50 damage boost when it did its attack. And I mean, like, it's probably not going to be Black White Kyurem and White Kyurem coming back, but I could see this sort of type of tool coming back and being reimagined for something like Koraidon and Miraidon, sort of the mascot Pokemon of the Scarlet and Violet era. I think it's fine if there is some sort of damage modifier for a specific Pokemon. However, I do think the effect is kind of boring, and it probably needs to do more than 50 damage just because of inflation. At this point, Pokemon are a lot bigger these days. Yeah, I'm not against seeing a special tool that ups the damage on a specific Pokemon, but it is kind of boring though. Conversely, we got Crystal Wall. This is for Black Kyurem EX, which raised its HP to 300. And I think Black Kyurem EX had 180 HP, so 120 HP boost, which is pretty big. And my feelings on this one are pretty much the same as the Crystal Edge, where, like, yeah, you could do it. It's kind of boring. I do think that, like, it makes sense for Koraidon and Miraidon as your mascot Pokemon of Scarlet and Violet to get something special. But I don't necessarily think it has to be this. If it is this, that's fine, though it kind of doesn't make sense for what Koraidon and Miraidon do. And it could be Black Kyurem EX, but I doubt it. not impossible. We have seen them come back to legacy things like Terra Charizard EX is dark type, just like it was when Charizard EX was, I think it was the Delta species Charizard, and I may be wrong on that, but that one, the dark type Charizard from back in the day, that one. So maybe they come back and just give this Crystal Wall again. I think it would be kind of boring if they did that though. So I'm not against the concept, but maybe the exact execution of it I'd like to see refreshed. Gold Potion, just straight up heal 90 damage from your active Pokemon. This one's a little interesting because there is healing in the game. We've seen Picnic Basket, there's the honey, there is the ice pops, and healing you don't really get a lot. There's a lot of healing cards, but there's always some sort of consequence after you get past Potion, right? Potion gives you a 30 HP heal, and then everything after that has some sort of additional thing, whether it is you heal all 30 Pokemon on the board like Picnic Basket, or you have to flip a coin, or whatever the context is. 90 HP is good. You'll probably have to increase it for what the modern meta is like. Based on what I've heard, at the time Pokemon maxed out at around 180 HP, so maybe you want half of that. And these days maybe you want like 140. I don't know. This would be fine. You would just have to increase the HP for that. I don't hate it, so ultimately give it a thumbs up. But it is kind of boring though. Dowsing Machine. Discard 2 cards from your hand, and if you can't discard 2 cards, then you can't play this card. If you do, put a trainer card from your discard pile into your hand. While I don't think this card is necessarily as strong as Computer Search, because you have to have the supporter card or the trainer card from your discard pile back into your hand, yeah, this is really strong. Imagine being able to grab items, or they might change it because at this point I know they didn't have tools at the time, but yeah, any trainer card would be absolutely incredible. It might get changed because at the time there were no such thing as tool cards, and there wasn't the tool errata, so this might have to be changed a little bit if they don't want you to grab tools with Dowsing Machine in the current game. But imagine a world where I just need that boss's orders. I don't have it in my hand. I can't search for it in my deck, but I've got Dowsing Machine. I can just grab it from the discard pile because I used it earlier and I get to use it again. That would be great. I think this is a well-balanced card, and I think that it would be a welcome return if this card came back into the game. Scramble Switch. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Then you may move as many energy attached to the old active Pokemon to the new active Pokemon as you like. So yes, you're doing a little bit of a switch, and then an energy switch, right? And I think, yeah, I would like to see this card back. It's not necessarily the most powerful Ace Spec, but you can survive a bit longer, bring in a fresh attacker. You put the hurt one on the bench, and maybe your opponent can't get to it because they don't have a copy of Boss handy, but it also could combo into some healing options, something like a Cheryl or a Sharon's Care, where now you can heal that off and you've got a fresh Pokemon on the bench negating the damage from the last turn. I think this card could be very cool. Arceus kind of does stuff like this now with Sharon's Care, and yeah, enabling other decks to have a similar effect without being the exact same thing, I think is very cool. And I think there are a couple of decks that may want this. I think most would gravitate towards something like a Computer Search or Dowsing Machine, but I do like the idea of Scramble Switch in the current game. Victory Piece. This was a specific tool for Victini EX that could negate the energy costs of its attacks. And I think this is very much Victory Piece is such a Victini specific thing, and there is a Victini in the game right now, a Victini EX, which they could just use it for. And yeah, you could actually, yeah, there's the slide. I'd say maybe they repurpose it for a different Pokemon and call it a different thing, where the idea of if you've got this tool, you could negate its attack cost. Sure, it's fine. I don't love it as a concept. I guess it really depends on what the attacks are that are unlocked when you have this item card or this tool card. But I don't hate it. I don't necessarily love it either. Life Dew. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out, your opponent takes one fewer prize card. I think I talk about a lot skewing the prize race, having single prize attackers in a multi-prize deck, which makes it harder for your opponent to take the win. I think this is a good card. I think it's a good card. And I wonder if it might be a little OP, but I guess that if you put it on a 3-prize Pokemon, it comes down to 2. But yeah, to me, this seems like a very strong card. And in the current meta, you can negate this in certain instances. Like if you're playing with a Sky Seal Stone, or your opponent has a Sky Seal Stone and they hit your V and V Star Pokemon. I know it's not going to help going forward, but we do have the sort of inverse of this that can negate that. And we sort of have this kind of effect with Hero's Medal, where it lets you take one less prize, but it also drops your HP by like 100. So it only saw a little bit of play. Life Dew, I think, could be a little more impactful, and I do like the way that it changes the trajectory of a match. And also keep in mind with tools like this, and I think with all of these tools that we have to keep in mind, that you can just remove this with Lost Vacuum if you've got one equipped or got one handy. Though I think at the time they also had tool removal cards. I think it was Field Blower. Anyway, I'm not going to speak too much on stuff I do not know. But Life Dew, I would like to see this one come back. Rock Guard. If the Pokemon this card is attached to, so another tool card here, is attached to your active Pokemon and it's damaged by an opponent's attack, put 6 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. And we actually have this effect a bunch in the game right now, which is why I think no. This will be my first definitive no for Ace Spec Cards. Like, we have Rocky Helmet, which is a spiritual successor to this card that doesn't do as much damage. Vengeful Punch, when they get knocked out, you drop 4 damage counters on them. We have Box of Disaster, which drops 8 if it's a one-shot KO. And there's Mismagius, where when it gets hit, it drops 8 damage counters as well. And yes, Rock Guard could be buffed to give you even more damage counters if you're trying to account for current inflation. However, with so many cards in the game that kind of do the same thing right now, I don't think we need Rock Guard to return. Moving forward, G Booster. This is a tool specifically for Genesect EX of that time. And you discard 2 energy attached to this Pokemon. This attack's damage isn't affected by any effects of the defending Pokemon. This is 200 Shred. Now, again, to preface, I was not playing at the time, and you might look at 200 damage right now and say, like, 200 Shred? Like, Zacian V-Star has 200 Shred. How important is 200 Shred? At the time, based on what I have learned, G Booster was essentially a one-hit KO on everything in the game. At the time, the ceiling for Pokemon HP was about 180, and this did 200. And on top of that, it is a shred attack, so you can't block it either, which makes it an absolutely insane attack if you were just repurpose this as that sort of one-hit KO weapon that or tool you could attach to. It would probably be a Genesect at this point. I think I'm not entirely against the idea of a one-hit KO sort of tool. You have to find it and attach it, and the stars align. You're going to discard energy. I think I would be very mindful of, like, if it's worthy of the game and how you go about it. But I don't necessarily hate it. It just feels maybe a little scary to have that sort of, here's this tool that gives you a one-shot, essentially a one-shot on anything in the game. So yeah, I'm kind of in the middle on this one. Genesect also had G Scope, which gives Genesect EX a 100 damage attack to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So yeah, this gives you 100 snipe. And unlike the previous weapon we just saw, G Booster, I don't think this should come back, because we're essentially getting this as a TM. It already got revealed in Paradox Rift. We are seeing the technical machine sneak attack, where for 3 colorless energy, you get to do 100 damage on an opponent's bench Pokemon. That now, it's not exactly the same because they have to have damage counters already on it. And I know that you have to get rid of the TM in order to, you can't just use it multiple times. G-Scope, you can. But I feel like with the TM sneak attack being largely the same thing as this that everyone gets access to, I don't necessarily see the need for G-Scope to be in the game going forward. We've got the Master Ball. Search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. And this one, yeah, I'd like to see this come back. We see a lot of Pokemon search in the game right now, from your Quick Balls, Level Balls, Ultra Balls, Battle VIP Pass, the coin flip one that I really hate that I'm totally blanking on right now. I think there's a lot, but there's always some sort of consequence to it. Like Level Ball caps out at 90 HP Pokemon. Nest Ball is just basics. Ultra Ball, you have to discard 2 cards, and just for 1 card, just grab a Pokemon that you want without consequence. I like it as an effect. I don't necessarily think it's too strong, and there are other Ace Spec cards here that most decks would rather run, but there are certain decks that really need to find specific Pokemon at specific times. I'm thinking, for example, Lugia is so important to get a specific combination of cards to set up properly, because you need to get the Archeops in the discard pile. You have to get Lumineon V-Star evolved. Early on, you probably need a Lumineon in order to play Professor Burnett to get the 2 Archeops down. And decks like that, where you need very specific Pokemon at specific times, a Master Ball could be great. And the last one, I believe, on this list is Scoop Up Cyclone, where you put one of your Pokemon and all cards attached into your hand. And I think this is an incredibly powerful effect. We have seen how picking up cards from your board can be impactful to the game. I think Acerola was one. Scoop Up Net is another one that just rotated out, and I think that we're never getting that card again because of how good it was and how it impacted the Sword and Shield meta at the time. And we don't have quite the same thing as Scoop Up Net in the game, but we do have some other ones like Scoop Up Cyclone, which means I kind of don't want to see Scoop Up Cyclone come back. We already have Sharon's Care, which basically does the same thing, but it's only for colorless Pokemon, and Penny, which does the same thing, but it's only for basic Pokemon. And I know those aren't quite the same thing as Scoop Up Cyclone. Scoop Up Cyclone is a universal option versus Sharon's Care and Penny that aren't. And I get it. You can only use one Scoop Up Cyclone. You can have multiple Sharon's Cares and Pennies and all that. Regardless, I think we just have this effect in the game already, and it's kind of specific to those types of decks, and I think that Scoop Up Cyclone could hurt the diversity of the game. So I would say, like, no, we kind of already have it. I don't think we need this one back. But what do you think about my picks on the Ace Spec cards? Do you think that all of these need to come back? Do you think none of these need to come back? Wherever you stand on the subject, leave your comments below. And I think, again, I don't want this to be a world where they just bring back all of the old Ace Specs. I want to see some new Ace Spec cards too. And maybe that's something we talk about in a future video. I've been trying to look at some Sword and Shield era cards that didn't come back and think to myself, like, is there anything here that they specifically didn't bring back or update the tournament marker on that could be repurposed as a one item card? I don't know. Maybe that's a video for another day. I definitely would need to put more thought into looking at past cards that could be repurposed as an Ace Spec card going forward. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching the video. Some quick plugs before we head out of here. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at In Third Person. You can find me on Twitch at In Third Person, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.